as Maurice has started building these minute blocks, initially we had LLMs, and then we had the reasoning model, and then we had tool calling experience with it. So all of this combined together is what makes this agentic models of the era. So what happened when LangChain has been around since 2022, and it's been from Meta. And for every model that's coming out, they have been incorporating that into LangChain again and again. And then there are other AI agentic approaches as well. There are other libraries popping up. So Anthropic, what they did is they saw an amazing opportunity and they decided that, okay, everybody is trying to build this in their own way. How about we give them a guidebook? Hey, here are the steps. If you're trying to build an agent, if you're trying to integrate your own tools, here are some guidelines. Follow this and you should be good. And this created two things for Anthropic. One, it immediately made them the industry leader. Second thing, it brought a lot of attention to Claude and brought a lot more usage. Imagine me spending like $20 already on trying to build an agent. So that's what the all this rife has been about. But internally, it's still tools, it's still agents, it's still tool calling, it's still doing models doing all the work. So MCP is just a guide that we are going to follow so that it makes our life a little bit easier. Little bit easier, yes, because it still has a lot more nuances to it. Uh, Before moving on to what MCP actually is, to even reinforce the concept, let's say in your company, you're trying to build a Slack agent, right? And you are using LangChain. Great, amazing. Now you have to go look at the Slack API, refer to what its consortium is, maybe write a wrapper on top of it, convert all the Slack SDKs into consumable tools in LangChain as Maurice showed. Now there is a company B which is also trying to do a Slack integration, and they said, don't use LangChain. We are against LangChain, use something else. And that person is writing their own wrapper, calling all the LLM models. Nobody knows how to maintain context. So that is another mess. And then the third company, fourth company, everybody who is trying to adopt LLMs or agents into their workflows is coming up with their own way of doing things. And in software engineering, we kind of resent that. We like rules, we like frameworks. So MCP is again a protocol, a set of rules that you can follow to build your agent. It is not anything like, it's not as amazing as LLM also. That's why we have like, it's okay, it's great, there is hype, but MCP is just a very small part of this agentic flow. Imagine a model can figure out whether it should call Google or whether it should go and make a booking. Like a model can figure out it intuitively. As compared to that, MCP is very small. So to reinforce what it has been doing, I want to switch screens. All right. So if you want to master MCP, all you have to do is read this particular page. This is the only universal documentation. No content creator can go past that, and it's not complex. It's just very new. And it hasn't become an industry standard also yet. Google has just released their agent to agent framework also. So this is your guidebook that MCP has provided. And just like I said, rather than writing your own set of integrations again and again and again, you have a concept called an MCP server. So if you're connecting to Slack, that could be one server. If you're connecting to Jira, that could be another server. And it can be connecting to your local source, or it can be connecting to something in the UI. Someone mentioned Airflow, right? You can have an Airflow web APIs wrapped around a MCP server, and you can attach it to the Claude tools. And this is the second point. First point is having this centralized framework that you can follow. Second point is you can integrate it with existing UI of all these API models. Like ChatGPT, you can integrate an MCP tool because they are providing both server and a client and rules for both, what it should do, so that all of this becomes pluggable and reusable. And that's the fundamental MCP concept. So there is nothing more to it. It's a very simple client server architecture that has these set of tools and some concepts like over here. That's pretty much all it is. So now that I've given you a taste of MCP, I can see that there should be questions. So let's start there. I'm going to pause for a little bit. I've talked a lot. What is going on in your mind right now as you see that MCP is just this, like an ability to plug and play things? I would even, MCP in agents is API in software. I would even go one step further and say it's HTTP in API. HTTP gives API calls a way to understand each other. Like it has a header, it has a body, and it has a authentication. Header has these four parameters. Body will have a start token, end token. Similar to that, MCP says you will have tools, you will have resources, you will have a reasoning mechanism for you to call the API back. We'll go through all the concepts, but that's what it is. It's just a layout for you to follow. What is the use of MCP proxy? I am not sure exactly what you're asking about. If there is a reference to that question, yes, Abhishek.
Yeah, so I've been hearing memes about it, and that S stands in like MCP. S in MCP stands for security.
Mhm.
That's like, is that true that it's not really that secure, or how does it? Like, I know it's relatively like very new and all, but still.
Uh, that's very valid point that people are expecting MCP to provide all the security that it needs. It's very early. I think they even released it in a hurry because the thing has evolved from last month to this month. The evolution is just so much. Uh, Again, to I don't know, to like validate or invalidate, Anthropic's idea is to give you a frame, like give you a tool or give you a guidebook. How you follow it is up to you. Whether you're not going to, you can still build security layers on top of MCP. Whether you choose to do it, there is no guideline as to how the security should look, right? That is where the argument is. It's very nuanced as to whether you're willing to do it. There is no, they haven't put down like exactly how to do it. You can still do it.
Mhm. Okay.
Instead of, okay, I'll answer Wade's question first. I hear it's server for connecting other LLMs and workflows to do something. Example, include on Cloud, write an email via MCP, connecting to your email. Yes, we are going to see a very similar example in a bit. I hope you all installed Claude so that we can see this in live action. I'll also show you how I recently used it and just uh, decided not to blog anymore. Things like that happens. Instead of using an AI code assistant to construct my code for calling APIs, can we use MCP? You can, but how would you do it is another question, right? Like instead of using an AI code assistant, can we use MCP? Again, at the end of the day, what is this MCP calling? It's going to call another application which is capable of doing some action. If it's a travel booking app, then it's going to make the bookings for you. If it's in this case, you want something that could generate code for you. So if you're using MCP, then again, at the end, some system has to generate that code and give it back to you. Whether you can, yes, you can. But what is that system going to be is up to you to decide. It feels like a universal middleware to connect any popular custom action. Bingo, on point. That is exactly what it is. A universal middleware, or again, middleware is overhyped because they are not doing any work. They are not writing any code. They're just giving us placeholders to, hey, put your logic here, put your server here, here's how you connect. Instead of using AI code, yeah, I've covered that. First, not to use MCP proxy for a local agent. I'm able to understand. I'm going to mark that, Daniel, and keep it for later because I haven't gone through it. I don't know what MCP proxy is also. Uh, Moving on, I want to see how many of you have already done with the installations, or do we need some more time to do the installations? I'm going to post this again. Show of hands, how many of you already have your Claude desktop and all the associated things that's mentioned in the tools and installations? Yes, Rahunuddin.
Sorry, I thought you wanted me to raise hand if I have installed the
Oh,
Cloud desktop. I
okay.
did.
Okay.
Yeah.
If someone needs more time, we can take that time now. Uh, get our water. I don't know whether the hands up are for questions or if it's questions, just go ahead. Please answer. While everybody else installs it, I'm going to sip some water. Take a quick 5 minute water break.
That was for installations.
Awesome.
We must need to enable the billing as well in Claude to use
That's
Claude desktop, isn't
app
it?
in
Yeah.
the not necessarily. There is a daily limit in Claude. We can still do the session with that. But if you want to pay and play around, please do. But I'm not stopping you from that. I
Yeah, when
think
I started the tool, it prompted me to, I mean, basically it redirected me to the payment screen where I had to buy credits with $5.
okay.
Yeah, I was not sure whether I should do it or not.
I
Maybe if there
think
are free limit.
I still use the free version for everything in this today's session. So if you're gonna be stuck, I'm also gonna be stuck, and that's
Perfect.
where we are. I'm gonna quickly share the screen, and if you're not a programmer and want to see the programming side, on here you can download zip and unzip it. So if you download zip, it will give you that whole folder. And if you're a non-programmer, then all of this might come with a bit of a problem, but you can still do it if you have Brew in your system. If you know some programming knowledge and have Brew in your system, you can pretty much install all of this. Let's take 2 more minutes and then we'll start. How many non-programmers are here? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, not bad. As you can see in this thing, in this section, step one doesn't need a lot of programming. It's just we will be using stuff that is pre-existing. Second one will need some programming. Third one needs a lot of programming, but we are not going to do a lot of that because you need API keys for that, which is paid. Finally, I will also introduce you to the modern Google's ADK and give you the like Google Agent SDK, which is MCP, because which is also going to make a lot of noise and you're going to feel the FOMO. One thing we want to lay fundamentally is everything that Maurice said so far or introduced us to, that is more important than all these frameworks because frameworks are learnable. It's not a technological advancement. It's just yet another tool that you can use. But the fundamentals of it remains the same. At the end of the day, LLM model still predicts the values. It does the tool calling, but how it does it is using these consortiums, right? So I hope everybody has Claude installed. We're going to get our hands dirty very quickly. And I'm going to start my Claude desktop app. I hope everybody can see my screen now, right? And it starts here. Okay. And if you go to Claude and under settings, you will see this developer mode here. And in that developer mode, I've already like given it a bunch of items. So right now what we are doing is we are going to give you a little taste of to what is it like to sorry, what is it like to use MCP servers that is already configured inside a Claude desktop. So your Claude desktop is your MCP client and your servers are predefined. Now you can see there are three MCP servers that I've connected this to: MCP file system, time, which is failing, and then there is a demo. So each of this, if I go to, there is a command that it's running, npx, and which is already installed in my machine. And then it is, so as you can see, we have three things running. How is this configured? If I go to edit config, there is a whole Claude desktop, like Claude desktops folder. Inside that, I have a configuration JSON. So this JSON is what decides which servers that I'm connecting to my Claude client, right? So if I go back all the way to the code, oops. All right. So if I go back all the way to my code, then you can see, why is this misbehaving today? So then you can see here, I have connected MCP file system and demo to it. I have removed time because it was failing, but it's still there. So this is how I've configured, and this file is also there on the repository that you've been using. So here I've mentioned model context protocol file system, and then this is a demo server, which we'll see in a bit. So let's see what this file system is all about. So if I go to MCP's this particular repository, model context protocol service repository, like I said, it's a common way to do a bunch of things. You have servers for Slack, Sentry, Redis, GitHub, Postgres, everything. If you have a Postgres running in your machine, you can connect to the Postgres server right here. So similar to how we are using the file system server, you can be using any of this. And these are given by, as an example, by Anthropic itself, like model context protocol itself comes with these predefined things. So you don't have to rewrite any of these, right? So this is a file system MCP server, which can read files, write files, search for files, get your files metadata. And it uses this files / system resource, which we will see in a little bit. And it has ability to read file.
Bhavani, can you zoom in a bit? I think it's too small for the. Yeah. Yes, that's good.
It has ability to read file, write file, edit file, all of these tools that we have seen before. It's the same set of tools, but in an MCP context. That's pretty much all it is. To see this in live action, again, I have said we have to go to this developer mode, click on edit config. You will have this config.json file, open it, and I think I will, right? And in this repository, you will have also see Claude config copy.json. This is our repository. You can copy this and paste it in your Claude config.json to try it live. And I'm going to remove this as well, remove this as well, right? And in the Claude config JSON, you can paste it and you can see it is configured currently for my path. So this is literally my blog post living in my computer. I've linked it to it. You can link it to any folder that you want. If you're on Windows, just ensure that you are using the right path. The path will look something like this. Example clients, example servers, file system. They haven't given it. Windows. The easiest way would be like, take this path, give it to ChatGPT and say, convert this into path for Windows, and then it will do the job. So this is how it would look, and also encode the slashes. So if you're using Windows, yours will look something like that. No, not like that. So ensure that you use the correct path if you're on Windows. And then you can put it here. Demo, we can skip it for now. You will see some of those erroring out. So once you entered everything and saved it, you need to restart your Claude so that this configuration takes into account. So quit your Claude altogether, completely quit it, and then restart your Claude so that once you come back to the settings and developer, you will see this. Now to see this in action, I can go back here and I'll show you an example I tried yesterday. So I've already connected it to my file system, and that file system is here. This is my portfolio website, and inside this, I have all my content in Markdown format. content, notes. So I have all this blog posts, and inside this, there are multiple files, as you can see. These are all my blog posts. I have linked it to this. And this is what Claude did, which amazed me at one level, but also scared the shit out of me. So based on the content in my directory, what are the new blog posts that I should write? So it went and found out all the available directories. And
Bhavani, can you increase the font size again? Yeah.
sorry, uh, it read the file system completely, and then it kept reading it for all the other directories until it can read my files. So there are Python posts, there are technical writing posts. It read a few of them and said, here is blog post 1, here is blog post 2 that you can write, here is blog post 3, right? So there is one, the agent comes into picture when it can go read something that is not pre-configured in it. The agent, like the LLM model, was not trained on it, but it goes and reads my content, comes back, and then it generates these ideas. Python to production, definitely a blog post that I should be writing. Given all the vibe coding chaos and everything, this will be an amazing article. How to build a technical portfolio. You have written so much. Why don't you write about that? Right? And then how do you write as a technical writer? These are some of the concepts that I can write about. Now I say, I like the ideas 1 and 2. Why don't you go ahead and actually write the blog? And to my surprise, it did. It went to the file system and started writing things, right? And then it created those things. I was like, that's still AI writing. I don't want it. I had a draft that was half pending and it was just standing there. So what I did was, there is a no screen challenge blog that has been written. Can you go to that and make it better in terms of storytelling, and do not compromise on my voice, which means my writing style, do not compromise on it. Just make it better, right? And it did take that file and rewrote the whole thing in a better narrative structure. All of that it just did. And the result of that, if I have to go to this one, reset at -1. On the left is what I have written. On the right is what LLM has written. This is literally what I have given it, and this is what it did make it better. I made an impulsive decision, reduced my phone usage for less than an hour, my caffeinated brain somehow. I'm like, why would I even write if like models can do this, right? So again, a model is just everything that's trained on the internet, but for it to understand what you are doing, what you have in your file, and then make this action of writing is where agent comes into picture, and MCP gives the ability for Claude desktop to do it from your machine, right? So that is what happens when you like give this Claude desktop or LLM models the ability to connect things to the external world. The possibilities are endless, and that's why it's creating all the rave, because you can do it, I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm going to take a pause while you read the blog or something, but I'll also answer some questions on the chat. Okay, which path we have to put in the JSON and increase font size. Okay, there is not much. 60 minutes on Amazon activity. Let's see what that is. You can. This is again a lot of agents working together. Export my blog post. I'm definitely going to try that and post where it goes. So what path should you put here in the config.json? So again, like I said, this is the path to my blog post that I did. You can put path to any folders like downloads, any folder in your system. Like change this path into anything that is there in your system. It can be downloads. If I put downloads, it will go to downloads and start like you can ask questions around that, right? Let's do something again to keep this alive. New chat. And once you've connected your MCP servers, you can see all the tools that's available here. Here is my add from demo server, create directory from file system server. All these tools are available to it. Now, what is something that we can do? Today, I am conducting an event on MCP servers. MCP, write a 200-word blog post on it under tiny experiments. This is my folder name. So let's see. I'm losing 200 words altogether, which is bad. It's okay. Oh, it's not tool calling. I'm going to stop this. So I can see it's not tool calling because it's just writing a document and it's not making the call. And that is also likely to happen because the model does not understand I'm asking it to call the tool. Call the tool to write it to my files. Yep. Now you have to give it access. So I'm going to allow it to access it now. Oops. Yeah, it did get access over a period of time, and now it's writing the blog post. And every time you have to keep giving this access, I couldn't find a centralized way to do this. And for some reason, Anthropic didn't understand itself. Like MCP is microcontroller programming in what world? We are living in 2025. So this is where the hallucination that we saw comes in. Now let's go back to my blog post and see if it created a new file. So here we are, and you can see MCP tiny experiment. There is a blog post created right here. So this is the capability of just attaching a tool to it. Very as simple as giving it an ability to write to your file system. Why do we call it MCP servers? Does that mean that we have clients as well? Yes. Now that we have understood or got a taste of what MCP is, let's go back to the documentation. Did I close it? Right. So there are two fundamental concepts to it. Yes, there is servers and there are clients. And client can be your Claude desktop, or it can be a Copilot MCP. Like you can write your own code as client. It can be Gen AI script. It can be Microsoft Copilot Studio, any studio that abides to these rules can be a client. So there are these many clients that it supports, and there are these concepts: resources, prompts, tools, sampling, and roots. If I go to resources, resources are basically your file contents, database schema, or any type of resources like resources, how can I say, is any kind of large volumes of text data are called resources. Tools versus resources, if you get, like right now we are using it's interchangeably, but what is the fundamental difference is resources are static data, whereas tool calling is dynamic. With tool calling, you can make an API call, get the data back, or you can make an API call, order an item out of Amazon, right? With tools, there is always an action performed. With resources, it's only the data. So like I said, if you read this page, you are a master in MCP, right? And that involves around these 5 concepts alone. First, we have understood that there is a client, there is a server, and there is some transport layer. And we have seen that it's a mix and match of this server client architecture. The third one we are seeing is this resources, which is like a static component of MCP. Anytime you have static log files that you want to feed in, you will feed in via these resources. And then we have seen tools, which is to perform an external action, writing to a file or making an API call, make a booking. All of these are servers. And then you have prompts. Prompts are usable templates that MCP servers provide. When a prompt, like what you have seen here, I'm still like shuffling through this. What you have seen here is a prompt that I gave, right? Today I'm conducting an experiment, but it doesn't really understood that I'm talking about a tool. So this is when you have to inject a prompt from the server end into the client. Like Claude does not know what I have in my code. So to do that, this prompt is really useful. And they have, again, certain rules as to how do you inject this prompt back into the code. So now you have a way to guide your agent as to what to do, and you're giving it access to certain resources, and you're giving it access to certain tools to make some actions. There is sampling. Sampling is when, as Maurice showed, there is a point where the model will sit on the answer for a few seconds, think about it, and then do something else with that answer. And that's where your sampling comes into the picture, right? You made an API call, you got an answer. Now you have to feed the answer back into the system, but it's still not complete. You might have some more actions. So this leeway of the server handing the data back to the system is done via sampling. So it says, hey, I have the answer. The server says it has the answer, but I still need a little more nudge in a different direction. Can you do that for me? And that is the way of sampling. There are routes and transports. Transports is basically how these API calls happen back and forth. It's not all static. It's not all stateless. So we have SSE based transport layer and standard output. What we are seeing right now is standard output, because it's all happening in a single machine. But if it's happening over a network, we will use server side events, where server side events will affect, like, it's a latching connection, right? Both the ends are actively talking to each other. In HTTP, what happens? You make a request and you get a response, and the conversation stops there. But here you have some kind of tunneling where the request goes back and forth. There is some kind of handshake happening all the time until one of them decides, hey, I'm done with this. Can we stop? Kind of a toxic connection vibes, but that's what we are going for here. So we have kind of gone through all this. Roots is the only thing, concept that defines the boundaries in which it can operate. This is very, very nuanced. This is also one way of doing what you can see, like one way of doing your security. When you're giving access to a resource, we are also constricting that you cannot read my downloads, you cannot read my invoices, you can only read my blog post. We have given it that segue, right? That's what roots are. So resources versus roots, even I am not sure why they have given two things, but they have given all these 5 concepts. So now I'm gonna ask you guys, like, does it really make sense? Like, is it really scary? Or is it worth all the hype it's getting?
Scary and exciting.
Scary and exciting, okay.
I'm not sure how many people have used Lovable. I've been playing around with that. That's something inspires me to build something similar. So this particular meetup actually helps me in building something similar, at least locally for coding.
If you're planning to do that, I would highly recommend checking out Claude Code, and it's fairly new, I guess. So you can connect it to your external, your repository, and ask it to do a bunch of things. There are code specific agentic model.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
that.
the thing here is I'm aiming for something which is running locally. I'm trying to remove the server component completely. That is the Claude server, essentially.
You mean the UI?
The Claude server itself. That is, it's still talking to Claude
Oh, right.
behind.
The model.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, when you do that, we would like to have a session in Learning Dev as to how you built it and all that. We
Yep.
will post you. Uh, any other questions? I saw a few raised hands.
Uh, Hey, hi, Arun here. So my major doubt is here, right? So when we are trying to run the server, right? So is it running from the cloud or it's running from, I seem like it's not running from the system or local, right? It's running from the node, right?
Yes. So I've shown you this transports, right? There are 2 formats to it. One is the standard input-output format. That's what Claude Desktop is using because it's all in your local system. So when the model calls happens, literally it's doing this. It's calling this file system model, and internally it has segues as to understanding what this is. What are the tools does it provide? What are the resources does it provide? All of this, it has context as to what those are. We can also go into the code, but right now, the example that we saw is just everything running in locally via command line. When you host a server, again, it's going to be an SSE call. And how do you do that SSE call? All of that is still in this example. Like you need to have an SSE endpoint and then messages endpoint. This messages endpoint is what receives your messages and does the action.
Okay. So when I was looking at this session, right? So my major expectation was to like we have multiple projects. So you work for a client, right? So they expect a data integrity, right? So when we are trying to get with AI assistant, right? So when you give this file system to a repo or something, it helps us, right? As a team, it helps us very much. It increase the productivity also, right? It's similar to vibe coding, I believe. So okay. So at that point, so in terms of data integration, right? So data integrity, for example, security reasons, they don't want to expose their all the items inside the repo or something, right? So they don't want to use the any outsourced servers or something like that. I believe that we can create a server for ourselves, right?
For MCP or for the model?
No, we'll be using the LLM for the client in terms of client, right? So for example, for the servers.
Servers, we can, I mean, at the end of the day, you are exposing it only if you're connecting it with the client, which is like a Claude or an OpenAI, right? It's still doesn't have any LLM components to it. Actually, let's go to server and let's go to this index. This is the single file that's doing all the work. And here there is no LLM concepts. There are only functions. So is it a valid path? I will actually do a little read multiple file args, write file arg schema. If I go further, you can see this search function, and then you can see this get file stats, and then there is create unified differentiator. I don't know what it does. Apply file edits. So all of these are still functions. It has nothing to do with any model. You don't, unless you expose it to a LLM model, they won't have your data, right? You can also expose it to an open llama.
Okay, so
Your system. Yeah.
understood. So with using this way of accessing the existing servers for whatever they provided and the default file system, GitHub, everything, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I give you an example where nowadays we are trying to actually the client gives us any a LLM, right? So either Copilot, ChatGPT, they provide us. I think that's been common nowadays that where they want to increase the productivity of the developer. So now we use daily in terms of increasing the productivity or solving some optimization or stuck somewhere, we have some issues, right? But sometimes what's happening nowadays, right? So it goes out of the context.
Yes.
So I believe where this MCP gives us the width to only stick to the context, right? Yeah, that's what I'm hoping from these. I think from this session, I think it's pretty much very going good. Yeah, please go on.
So the context window is still a huge problem in the LLM world itself. It's not just for MCP or agents or anything like that. It's still a big problem because you only have so much memory in a system. You can only give so much of hardware resources for something. Even if you give all the memory that OpenAI uses, at some point it's going to have a cutoff, right? And that's what's happening with these agents. All the online demos, even the demos that we are going to see today, is very, very small. But when you actually do it with an application, for example, I integrated this with MCP with an Airflow REST API. And Airflow REST APIs are huge. The API itself, around 34 APIs are there, important ones. And the JSON responses are again huge. So our existing REST API is not really a good way to write wrappers on top of, but that's what we have, and that's what we are doing the most of the times. So context window problem, MCP, does it solve? Not really. Does it make it better? Only by designing it a way to make it better. So again, MCP will not give you that that control as to how do you control the context window. It cannot, because it's just a server giving you the data. So enough talk. On the repository that you've just downloaded, you're not a coder, it's fine. You just follow along and we can hopefully get somewhere. If you're on Mac, you can still do brew install UV, npx, Node.js, actually Node.js, then npx, all of this on one shot, and then install all of this required. And I'm going to show you a very small MCP server that we have written. And it does exactly what Maurice has shown us. The tool calling still remains the same. It's still a tool, it's still a function, still an API call. And to this, you can add other tools, mcp.tool, right? And here is where mcp.tool, and then here is where I can add more things. I can add a tool which calls, let's say, Slack, get latest messages. I'm just from Slack. I'm just pinging it up. We are not going to write an integration right now. Return no new messages. So I can write any function, any code. I know we are all vibe coders. We can just spin these integrations off the bat. This can be your Telegram. This can be your WhatsApp. Anything that is an integration. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's Lumen. Yeah.
You can see people coaching in. Good. Returns message from Slack, right? Once you write this is your server, and mcp.run is running the server. And if I do Python, sorry, uv run server.py, you don't see much here. I think I did this again. You don't see much happening here. It's just running an MCP server. Even that I have to print it. That is again to show how early MCP is, right? Once you do MCP to run, it runs a server, and without me printing it, you won't even see anything on the terminal. That's how early this whole thing is. So there is a long way to go. Whether it's running in development mode, not development mode, I don't know. As a software engineer, I find it very annoying at some level. So it's running the server. Running the server is not going to help you in any way, because we are going to use all STDIO way. So this is the exact tool that we are connecting with Claude in the config. So if I go to settings, this demo, yeah, it runs UV with MCP CLI and MCP run this server. This is the exact thing that I'm running here. I have to restart Claude so that the changes that I made to the server takes effect. So let's restart. So if I go back to Claude and go back to tools, you can only see add here. If I've done everything correctly, I will see a lot more tools. So let me quit Claude and then rebring it. If only there is a way to zoom my whole screen at once. But I think you guys can do it at Zoom. There should
Change your display resolution.
If I do that, I cannot work. I cannot show things. That's a problem. So here is the demo. It's still running. It's not throwing an error. Time is something that I've incorporated from the existing stuff. So it's erroring out. I don't know why. Not worrying about it. Now in this tools, you can see there is two more. Add, subtract, and then somewhere here it should be Slack. Get latest messages from Slack. All these tools are now being integrated. We are only writing servers and tools. Get my latest messages from Slack. So it's asking again to make that action. It made that action and it got no new messages as the answer. So I've checked your Slack. Now there is no new messages. Now you go back to the template code, make a Slack integration, get that messages. You don't have to do all that. You already have a server in MCP thing. You can try that, connect to Slack. But this is general understanding of what MCP server is. Now I'm going to hand it off to you to go and edit this stuff write whatever that comes to your mind. All you have to do is copy paste an existing tool and write it such that you can like kind of understand or play around with this MCP client talking to an MCP server, right? If you want to make math calculations, great. If you want to make hit and weather API, that's great. I will share some more examples with you. And if you want to go one step further, even in here, we have step-by-step integration as to how to write a weather server in Python, Node, Java, Kotlin, all of that it works. So you can try this as well. Do we have the time? We have time. We can actually take about 15 to 20 minutes to just try this out. I will put this on the server. And when you try it, you will have a lot more questions. You can answer that. Fast MCP, fast API, under the hood. Yes, it is under the hood. It's still fast API. In Python world, it's something. In JavaScript world, it's something else. So I'm not going into the nuances of what that is. Just we can use this. Active pieces is one alternative. Yes, active pieces is a good alternative if you don't want to work with code. That's what we all feel. Everybody's job is gone. What are we even doing here? Anyways, so you have step-by-step instruction as to how to build a weather server here. The reason I'm again pointing you to the documentation is I can create my own tutorial 1, 2, 3 step, and then you will think I am better than MCP documentation. It's not. MCP documentation is 5 pages max, and that's the whole truth. No influencer can come and say, I know better than what MCP does. No, there's only this much. If you learn this, you can call yourself an MCP expert. So I'm going to put about 20 minutes on the clock. So when something you see is failed, for example, Ramuddin, open logs folder, and in here you will be able to see that specific server's logs. Like for
Yeah.
example, in my case, if this time is failing, right? And in here you will see something wrong with the path, or it's hard to read through this, but your error will somewhere be here at the top as to what is exactly failing. Sometimes it's the path, sometimes it's UV itself. Uh, you
Actually, that MCP documentation shows that you'll have to provide the full path to UV. So you can get that by adding which UV. So it will specify where UV resides actually.
Yes, that depends on how you installed also. For example, I've installed it in the system path with Brew, so it recognizes it. If that's the issue, try which UV, like he suggested, will give you a path. You can put that instead of just UV, you can put that as the command.
Okay.
Figure out what the issue is in the log.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
All right. So that was 20 minutes. Were you able to run some level of MCP server?
Yes, I was able to run it. But I think that API which it is using is only for US location. So I think, yeah, I searched for San Jose and it was able to detect the latitude and longitude, and it gave me the prediction. So,
Right.
yeah.
Super. I think that's wonderful. One person got it right. Anyone stuck? Rahmuddin, I know you were stuck. Were you able to fix it?
No, I mean, I think the npx thing which I mentioned about is the first command for the file system.
Okay. File
Yeah,
system, we don't like you can experience this. So like any error in the demo server, like file system server will not affect the demo server. So it should
yeah. Demo server is running fine. That's why I said UV looks like UV has permissions, and I see in the Cloud desktop, it's fine now. It's running.
okay, cool. So I think most of us got it running. Anyone who couldn't get it running, raise hands, please. Yes, wait. Developmental issue, setup issue.
For me, it's I have the file, and it's giving me issues saying there's no file or directory. So I'm troubleshooting with GPT,
Okay.
but it's more, I think, just the way it's set up for me. Because when I try to open the file, it opens cursor instead of VS Code. So it's more, I just need to like wrangle with it.
You have installed UV?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you do which UV, it gives you a path.
Yeah.
Also, are you on Mac?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Super. So, when do you need an MCP client? We already have a Claude desktop. Why do we need to build a client from the first place? Any thoughts?
To work with different LLMs,
Sorry?
to have multi LLMs, perhaps.
Multiple LLMs, that's a great point. Yes, multiple, but we already have, oh, yeah, that's a good point. You can have multiple models working together. That is one option. Any other thoughts?
Basically, now we are uh, making a communication between cloud desktop and other applications. So basically, it's with from any application to any other application.
Wonderful. Yes, that's pretty much why we need clients. I'll give you a very small example. This is not a working example, but it'll give you an idea. For example, Airflow is an existing workflow orchestration tool. It's open source. On top of that, I've been trying to build an LLM chat agent on top of that. So that answers questions based on anything that's happening here, like what are the tasks that failed in the background. And while doing this project is when I faced all this context window problem because all the responses are huge. I don't think it works. It might fail. What's the workflow that that failed recently? Yeah, that doesn't work with Gemini for some reason, which I'm in working of. But this is pretty much, and it's behind the scenes, it's our MCP wrappers written on top of Airflow working. But that's when we need MCP clients. And to write your own MCP client with Anthropic, you need to put $5 into the API key and get the API key. But without that, if you want to do it, there is a very hacky way of using Gemini. Gemini is Google's model and it still doesn't support MCP out of the box. Only in the recent agent SDK, they have agent ADK, agent development kit, they have started supporting it. So, but if you have the Anthropic key, your life is much easier. The same way how we have followed the documentation just with Anthropic API key, you can write this client and this client will connect to your server depending on whether it's Python or Node. Here you can see the same thing that we have passed to the MCP config.json file. This is very similar to that. You have a command, you have a path to the script, and you have environment variables. And this will take care of everything. And at the end of it, you will be able to run a chat interface from your CLI itself, from your terminal itself. Here, when we ran the server, we didn't get any response. But when we run this client, we will actually have a chat agent running. And the code for that is again inside clients, Anthropic client. All the code is here. You can also just, if you have the Anthropic key, you can try running it. But for some reason, Anthropic hates me and doesn't give me, even though I have money put into it. So again, it has add, subtract, and latest messages from Slack. I use get latest messages from Slack. Yeah, it says I don't have enough credits, but I do. Still doesn't give me. It's a common problem. I've contacted the support. But this is pretty much how you write an MCP client. You don't have to understand everything. Pretty much the example takes care of it. The thing that you need to notice is here is a loop. Before we go there.
Why do you need the Anthropic credits? Like, I don't think we are hitting Anthropic servers, right? While using an MCP.
MCP server, you don't need a LLM model. MCP client, you need an LLM model, and here is where that configuration happens.
Okay, so we are using Anthropic's LLM. That's why we need the key. Got it.
Claude LLM model is what we're using.
Got it. Okay.
Because that's the easiest example that gives you, for example, that's the easiest SDK that gives access to MCP easily, like understandably. If you're doing with Gemini, you have to go through the hoops of figuring out, like doing some configuration, which I'll show you in a bit. Until 2 days ago, it was not possible with Gemini or a very hacky way. Yesterday or 2 days before it started working. So yeah, I'll come to that in a bit. So here's where we are defining the Claude, like use this model, Claude Haiku model, and maximum tokens that you can use is 50 because tokens are expensive, very expensive. And especially when you're not controlling it, it can give you a large response and you can lose your money. And to this, you will also pass the messages that you are getting from the user. Somewhere to process query, we are getting the message from the user and then passing it to the query. So in this chat loop, we'll get the query from the user. If it's not quit, we are going to process that query. And this is a user query. We haven't talked about this. So there is three types of prompts: user prompt, system prompt, and agent prompt. There is something in the middle I forgot, which tells the model, like when it's thinking, it will use that prompt to think. So there is system prompt and user prompt. This is a user generated prompt. And you are listing the tools here. You're also passing the available tools to this along with the messages, and you get a response. If it's a text response, you add it to your final text. If it's a tool use, the model is saying use the tool, then you're calling the tool. That happens here. So when you're writing your own client, you have to do all this. Remember how when we used Claude thing, it was doing everything in itself. Behind the scenes, it's doing something like this. If it's a tool use, it goes and calls the tool, gets the response, feed it back into the messages. So spend some time into this and ask if you have any questions. If you have Anthropic API key, try running it. Let's put 7 minutes on the clock to go through this code. Right. How was writing your own client? Complicated, annoying? I'm just listing down all the things I felt when I first wrote it. When I first wrote the MCP client for Airflow, I was like, are you kidding me? I should be doing all this work, not LLM models, especially this calling the tool part. What? The model will not call the tool. It will just say call tool here, and I have to do it. This part where it's saying, where we are actually calling the tool from the code is when I decided like MCP is not that great. It's just all jugad under the hood. So the model actually at one point says, it's not a text response, it's a tool use response. And then you have to capture it in code when you're writing the client, actually make the call, get that result, put it back into the thing as an assistant. Yeah, assistant was the other one. On top of the user prompt, and then send it back to the model for it to give you the answer. So that's how you write it. Spend some more time in this loop to understand when the user prompt takes over versus when the tool calling takes over versus when does it comes back to the system prompt, all of that. So with that,
So in that sense, can we call this a kind of RAG implementation?
no, RAG is
Maybe my understanding is wrong.
no, RAG is a separate thing which particularly says like you have a lot of documents and you vectorize it, put it in a database, and you do some form of a search mechanism to pull that respective data based on the query.
But at the end of the day, it's more like adding an extra context, custom context to the LLM so that it can come up with a better result, isn't it?
Yes, maybe we need a better word for that, but that's not RAG. Like retrieval augmentation generation, I see where you're going with that, but if you say RAG, it immediately means that I see what you mean.
Okay.
Now I cannot like contradict it also. I see what you mean, but for me, its mental model is immediately it has documents vectorized put in a database, and then we are retrieving that. But I'll check up on it. Good question though.
Thanks.
Yes, Gaurav.
So my question is regarding alternatives to MCP. What are the leading alternatives or the closest alternatives currently?
There is a lot. Alternatives to MCP itself is LangChain. Like easily, LangChain has its own tooling mechanism, agent building mechanism. Also, I don't know how many of you saw this. Google recently, very recently, like 2 days ago, announced agent to agent. And everybody is suddenly becoming experts in agent to agent, and it's 2 days old. I'm like, that's why I'm saying all this LinkedIn posts, don't get overwhelmed by it. It's literally all they did was one line of page and how it complements, and they've partnered with a lot of industry people so that they have better integration than with MCP. I'm going to get penalized for posting this online, but it's okay. We can have opinions. So there are a few design principles just like MCP, and they have very strongly said we are going to only complement MCP, nothing else. It's still everything else is the same. But then they went ahead and did something like this Agent Development Kit. And in this, you can do MCP or you cannot do MCP. It's still up to you. So MCP is there, but function tools is something that we give out of the box. If you want, you can use this or you can use MCP tools. So there is still a lot of options for you. If you're not using MCP, you can use ADK and it comes with its own functional tools. Just like MCP, it also has built-in tools that you can just use out of the box, like a Google search. So again, this is coming up. This is just 2 days old. I don't have a lot of opinions on it. I have not used it on an actual app yet. The other options are, of course, like chain tool calling. This is what Maurish has showed us. And there is Lang graph also, which gives you this agent to agent at some level. Lang graph is another one. The Lang chain and Lang graph works hand in hand with each other. Other servers per se, not MCP, I'm not sure, but there should be. If at all we look for SDKs, anything that's an agent SDK will have some kind of function calling in it. And anything that has OpenAI's SDK, how can we forget it? They have that's their own set of tools. They started supporting MCP very recently, and everything is a tool calling mechanism, function calling mechanism. And each of those models has its own way of doing it. If you want a centralized way, LangGraph or LangChain is the easiest. I haven't seen anything close to that. Now the problem is everybody is trying to get the market. Anthropic will push for MCP, Google will push for ADK, OpenAI says they support MCP, but they will still release their own thing. And each of them will have its own syntax. Syntactically, it's different. Inside, it's all function calling and tool calling, and some amount of orchestration between all of this. And that's what I want you to take away with it. Don't get overwhelmed by anything on the internet. It's all new, it's all fresh. There is not enough documentation, there is not enough examples. So you can still try it and get a hold of this technology, not be scared by it. And that's what this co-learning session is all about. This is not a workshop, this is a co-learning session. And every learning dev, we'll take one such technology, just get our hands in there, see what's there. Even if it's just trying the one example. That's all I have for you in this session. You can go back, try all of this very slowly and get a hang of it. Don't get overwhelmed. It's just a technology.